He thought he was walking home, but fate was leading him to two little souls who would change his life forever. Christmas Eve was cold, cold enough to freeze breath midair. But nothing was colder than what he was about to discover behind that bakery. He expected silence in the alley. Instead, he heard the softest whimper, the kind that tears straight into a father's heart. Sometimes life breaks you in one night, and sometimes it gives you the reason you were meant to be alive. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, glittering like shards of glass under the streetlights as Ethan trudged home after another exhausting shift. Christmas Eve, one of the busiest nights of the year, had left his back aching, his fingers numb, and his spirit nearly drained. All he was thinking about was getting home to his 7-year-old son, Aiden, who was probably still awake, waiting for his dad with a cup of lukewarm cocoa he'd tried to make by himself. Ethan tightened the scarf around his neck, shivering as a gust of icy wind cut through his jacket. His boots crunched over the thin layer of snow coating the pavement. The streets were mostly empty now. Families were at home, warm, safe, celebrating Christmas Eve around fires and feasts he could only dream of giving his son. He took a shortcut behind the old bakery, the same shortcut he used every night. The alley was always dim and silent, smelling faintly of stale bread and smoke. But tonight something felt off. He slowed. A strange sound drifted through the air. A tiny sound. A sound that didn't belong in a deserted alley on a freezing winter night. A soft whimper. Ethan froze, breath catching. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He turned slowly toward the dumpster near the back door of the bakery. At first, he saw nothing but shadows. Then he saw it. A small, trembling bundle of blankets, no bigger than a grocery bag. He blinked, thinking his tired eyes were playing tricks on him. But then the bundle moved. Shivered. And a little hand, thin, pale, and shaking, slipped out from under the torn fabric. Ethan's heart lurched. "No, no, no," he whispered, stepping closer. He knelt, his breath clouding the air, and pulled the blanket back gently. And what he saw made the world tilt. Two little girls. Twins. Curled together on a piece of cardboard beside the dumpster. Their legs pulled up to their chests, their faces flushed with cold. Their clothes were thin summer dresses, completely wrong for winter. Their hair tangled. Their lips turning blue. "Hey, hey, sweetheart," Ethan whispered, voice trembling. "It's okay. I'm here." One twin stirred, blinking weakly. Her huge brown eyes darted up at him, filled with fear. "Don't hurt us," she murmured, barely audible. Ethan felt something sharp twist inside his chest. "I won't. I promise you. I'm here to help." The other girl shifted, clutching something to her chest, a stuffed bunny missing one ear, the fur worn and dirty. She whispered, voice cracking, "Is it morning yet?" Ethan swallowed hard, his throat burning. "No, sweetie, but we're going somewhere warm. Right now." He took off his jacket without hesitation and wrapped it around both girls. His hands shook, not from cold, but from the horrifying realization that if he hadn't taken this route, if he had walked just a little faster, if he hadn't paused at the corner, they would have died tonight. He slid his arms under them carefully. They were so light it broke him. As he lifted them, both twins whimpered from the sudden movement, their tiny fingers gripping his shirt like they were terrified he would vanish. "I've got you," Ethan whispered. "I've got you. You're safe now." He started walking quickly, shielding them from the wind with his own body. With every step, questions crashed through his mind. Who were they? Where were their parents? How long had they been out here? Why were two babies sleeping beside a trash dumpster on Christmas Eve? He didn't have answers. All he had were two freezing children in his arms and a burning determination to keep them alive. When he reached his apartment building, snow had started falling harder. He pushed the door open with his shoulder, kicking it closed behind him. Aiden peeked out from the living room, eyes widening when he saw his father carrying two tiny girls wrapped in his jacket. "Dad, who are they?" Ethan didn't answer at first. He was too busy gently placing the girls on the couch, pulling blankets over them, and turning on the heater full blast. He finally looked at his son. "They're lost," he said softly. And tonight, we're helping them. But deep inside, Ethan knew this wasn't just about helping strangers. Something about these girls, something in their faces, something in the way they clung to him, stirred a feeling he couldn't explain. A feeling that whispered, this wasn't an accident. This was fate. And these two little girls were about to reveal a truth he was never prepared for. The girls didn't cry for food or warmth. They cried for someone else, someone they believed was coming back. Sometimes the smallest voices reveal the biggest heartbreak. He thought rescuing them was enough. But their next words shattered him. Two frightened twins, one mysterious photo, and a truth that refused to stay buried. The heater hummed softly as warmth filled the small living room. Ethan watched the twins closely, kneeling beside the couch, making sure they were safe, warm, and breathing normally. His son, Aiden, sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the little girls with the kind of worried curiosity only children had. One of the twins, Lily, stirred first. Her eyelids fluttered open, and she blinked at the unfamiliar room. She looked around, confused, then frightened, her small hands gripping the blanket tightly. "Hey," Ethan said gently. "It's okay. You're safe here." Her eyes locked onto his, searching, unsure. The second twin, Rose, rubbed her eyes and sat up too, her stuffed bunny pressed against her chest. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Is Mama here?" The room went still. Ethan exchanged a glance with Aiden, then looked back at the twins. "No, sweetheart," he said slowly. "She's not here." "Where is she? Do you know?" Rose fiddled with the bunny's missing ear. "She told us to wait," she whispered. "She said she would come back for us." Ethan felt his stomach drop. "How long ago was that?" he asked softly. The girls looked at each other, unsure how to measure time. Finally, Lily raised 3 fingers. 3 sleeps, she said. 3 nights. 3 nights alone. In the freezing cold. Behind a dumpster. Ethan felt a burn in his chest. Anger, grief, disbelief, blending into something sharp and protective. "You must be very brave," Aiden said suddenly, scooting closer. "It must have been really cold." Rose nodded slowly. Lily didn't speak. She was staring at Ethan with an intensity that made him pause. Then she whispered, "Are you like a daddy?" Something inside him cracked. "Yes," he said quietly. "I'm a daddy." She swallowed. "I wish our daddy came to get us." Ethan's breath caught. So they did have a father. Or did they? He didn't push further. Instead, he stood and walked to the kitchen, heating milk, preparing simple sandwiches, soft bread, honey, something easy for tiny, exhausted bodies to digest. When he returned, the twins were sitting up, Aiden beside them, showing them his toy cars. Rose reached for the warm mug with both hands, sipping slowly. Lily held the sandwich like it was something precious, taking tiny, careful bites. "You can eat more," Ethan encouraged. "There's plenty." "We don't want to be trouble," Lily murmured. "You're not trouble," he said firmly. "You're guests." The girls exchanged a shy glance, as if the word guest was magical. After they finished eating, Lily pulled something from her pocket, a folded, slightly crumpled photograph. She stared at it for a second before handing it to Ethan with small, trembling fingers. "This is Mama," she whispered. Ethan took it gently. The woman in the photo had long, dark hair, warm brown eyes, and a tired but beautiful smile. She wore a simple coat, and around her neck hung a silver leaf pendant. Ethan stiffened. He knew that pendant. He'd seen it years ago. His heartbeat thudded hard in his chest as he swallowed, trying to keep his voice steady. "Do you know your mama's name?" he asked. "Maria," Rose whispered. "Mama Maria." Ethan's world tilted. Maria. The name he hadn't spoken in years. The name he tried not to think about. His ex-wife's name. No, it couldn't be the same woman. It couldn't. But the pendant, the scar near her eyebrow, the slope of her smile, the familiar innocence in the twins' faces. Everything lined up like pieces of a puzzle he'd never wanted to open again. Aiden cleared his throat, snapping Ethan from his spiraling thoughts. "Dad," Aiden whispered privately, tugging on his sleeve. Why do they look kind of like me? Ethan froze. He hadn't even noticed it until Aiden said it. The shape of the eyes, the slight curl of the hair, the same small dimple on the left cheek.
No.
Impossible. He shook the thought away. But then Lily tugged on his hand. Can we stay here until Mama finds us? She asked, voice trembling. Ethan knelt, his voice soft but steady. You can stay as long as you need, he said. You're safe with us. The twins exhaled shakily, relief softening their tiny shoulders. They didn't know, and Ethan didn't yet understand, that their presence would unravel a truth buried for 5 long years. A truth that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his past, and about the woman who once owned the pendant he now held in his shaking hand. He thought he was helping 2 lost children, not uncovering a secret tied directly to his own past. Sometimes the truth doesn't knock. It crashes into your life wrapped in a crumpled photograph. He saved the twins out of kindness, but now a terrifying possibility whispered through his mind. What if fate had brought them to him for a reason? One necklace, one face, one memory he'd spent 5 years trying to forget. Ethan stood in the middle of his living room long after the twins drifted to sleep, staring at the photograph they'd given him. His pulse thudded steadily in his ears, drowning out the soft sound of the heater and the faint snores from Aiden's bedroom. Maria. The name echoed through every corner of his mind like a ghost shaking the walls of a house long abandoned. He traced the silver leaf pendant with his thumb. The image was old, creased, faded, the edges worn, but he would have recognized that necklace anywhere. It was handmade, custom designed by a small shop owner downtown. Only 5 pieces existed. Maria had worn hers every day. The last time he saw her, the pendant had been tangled in her hair as she rushed out the door, eyes red from crying, her hand resting on her stomach. Pregnant, exhausted, scared, and gone before he could stop her. Ethan inhaled sharply. No, he muttered to himself. It can't be her. It can't. But the more he looked at the twins, the harder it became to deny the possibility. Their eyes, warm hazel with faint golden flecks, were the exact shade of Maria's. Their curls had the same texture. Their tiny dimpled smiles. He shut his eyes tightly. He didn't want to remember. Didn't want to reopen the wounds he'd spent years stitching shut. He moved to the kitchen, gripping the counter as memories crashed into him like waves. 5 years ago, their marriage had crumbled. Not because they didn't love each other, but because life had been merciless. Money was tight. Maria was pregnant and sick. Ethan worked 3 jobs and still came home to empty cupboards and unpaid bills. The world squeezed them until they broke. Then suddenly she was gone. Everyone assumed she'd left him. A few claimed she'd run off with someone else. Ethan never believed that. Maria was too loyal, too soft-hearted, but he had no answers. No note. No message. No goodbye. Just silence. He spent years burying that pain. And now, 2 small voices were sleeping on his couch calling her mama. A quiet sound pulled him from his thoughts, a soft shuffle from the hallway. Rose peeked around the corner, rubbing her eyes, the stuffed bunny drooping from her hand. Can't sleep? Ethan asked gently. She shook her head. Come here. She padded toward him on bare feet, climbing into his lap without hesitation. He held her carefully, the way he used to hold Aiden when he was that small. Do you miss your mama? He asked softly. Rose nodded. She sings to us. She puts flowers in our hair. She says we're her brave girls. Ethan swallowed a lump in his throat. When did you see her last? Rose frowned, thinking. She said she had to go talk to someone. A bad man. The last 2 words came out in a whisper, like she was afraid the walls might hear. Ethan stiffened. A bad man, he repeated. Did she say his name? Rose pressed her face into his shirt. No, but she told us to stay hidden, if she didn't come back. Hidden. Behind a dumpster. On Christmas Eve. Ethan felt rage coil hot and sharp in his chest. Not at Maria, never her, but at whatever darkness she'd been running from. Rose, he said softly, did your mama ever talk about another little child? A boy. Rose shook her head. No. But she always tells us stories about a brave man. A strong one. A good one. Ethan blinked. What kind of man? The one who loved her, Rose said simply. She said he didn't know everything. And one day he would be very sad. His breath froze. She didn't say father. She didn't say you. But the implications settled over him like snowfall, silent and heavy. Before he could ask more, Lily appeared in the doorway too, clutching the blanket around her tiny shoulders. Rose, Lily whispered. I dreamed about Mama again. She was calling our names. Rose slid off Ethan's lap, running to her sister and hugging her tightly. Sho, she whispered. We'll find her. The nice man will help us. Ethan's heart clenched. The nice man. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know what he feared. They didn't know how deeply their existence had shaken his entire reality. But they trusted him. And he would not, fail them. He knelt beside the twins, placing a gentle hand on each of their shoulders. I promise you, he said softly. I will help you find your mama. No matter what. Lily looked up at him, her eyes shining with fragile hope. Do you promise? She whispered. He nodded. I promise. But as he spoke the words, a truth he wasn't ready to face whispered through his mind. If Maria really was their mother, then these little girls might also be his daughters. And finding Maria might mean confronting secrets buried for 5 long, painful years. Secrets that would change everything. Sometimes the past doesn't knock. It walks through your front door bruised, shaking, and holding the truth you've been running from. He thought the mystery ended with the twins until the person he least expected appeared on his doorstep. 5 years of silence. 5 years of unanswered questions. And in a single heartbeat, everything came crashing back. He saved the twins' lives, but he wasn't prepared for the woman who would arrive next, or the truth she carried. Morning came slowly, slipping into the apartment like a shy guest. The faint golden light touched the edge of the couch where Lily and Rose slept curled together, their small hands still clutching each other even in their dreams. Aiden sat on the carpet near them, building a small tower out of his toy blocks, glancing at the twins every few seconds as if afraid they'd disappear. Ethan hadn't slept. He spent the entire night pacing, the photograph of Maria burning a hole in his hand, the memories burning deeper in his chest. Every instinct inside him screamed that the twins were connected to him, to her, to the life he once had before everything shattered. But he didn't dare accept it, not without proof, not without seeing Maria with his own eyes. He ran a hand through his messy hair, staring at the girls. 5 years. 5 years since she vanished. 5 years since the miscarriage scare. 5 years since she left behind a life that felt like it was drowning her. But had she left him willingly? Or had something darker been pulling the strings all along? He didn't know. He wasn't prepared for the answer. A sudden, frantic knock rattled the door. Ethan jolted, fear gripping him. The knock came again, softer, weaker, almost collapsing under its own weight. Aiden looked up. Dad, someone's here. Ethan stood, heart pounding. Something in that knock felt wrong, desperate, fading, urgent. He walked to the door slowly, cautiously, and turned the handle. When the door opened, the world stopped. A woman stood there, shaking violently, her coat ripped, her lips split, her eyes hollow with exhaustion and terror. Snow clung to her hair and lashes, melting down her bruised cheeks. Her breath hitched when she saw him, and Ethan felt his heart implode. Maria, he whispered. Her knees buckled. If Ethan hadn't lunged forward, she would have collapsed on the icy doorstep. He caught her, arms wrapping around a body far thinner, far weaker than he remembered. Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. Ethan, the girls, are they here? Everything inside him froze. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. He looked into her eyes, those familiar, warm brown eyes once filled with gentle laughter, now swimming in fear and grief, and the truth hit with brutal clarity. It was her. She was alive, and she had come back for them. A small gasp came from behind him. Mama. The twins ran toward the door, Lily tripping over the blanket but pushing herself up again, Rose close behind her. Maria sobbed, holding her arms open. My babies, my babies. The girls threw themselves into her, their tiny arms, still trembling, wrapping around her neck, their cries muffled against her coat. Ethan stood there, frozen, watching the scene unfold, unable to speak, unable to think. The woman he once loved with everything he had, holding two little girls he'd rescued from the cold. Two little girls she had given birth to. Two little girls who might be...
No.
He had to hear it from her. When Maria finally looked up at him, tears streaking down her cheeks, he saw fear in her eyes, not of him, but of what she had to say. We have to go, she choked out. He's looking for them.
He knows I escaped.
He'll find us. Ethan's jaw tightened. Who? Maria swallowed hard, trembling. The man who threatened me years ago. The same man who made me leave you. He wanted the babies. I hid.
I ran.
I thought I could keep them safe. Ethan's blood ran cold. You left to protect them, he whispered. Maria nodded, sobbing. And to protect you. I couldn't let him hurt you or Aiden. I thought if I vanished, he would give up. But he didn't, Ethan said quietly. No, Maria's voice broke. He took everything. He hunted us. I've been running for 5 years. There it was, the truth he never expected. She hadn't abandoned him. She had been fighting for survival. And the twins... He felt his voice tighten. Maria, Lily, and Rose, are they mine? The room fell silent. The twins clung to her. Aiden watched with wide, confused eyes from the couch. Maria looked at Ethan, tears washing down her face. Yes, she whispered. They're your daughters. The words hit Ethan like the force of a speeding train. His daughters. The little girls sleeping on trash. His daughters. The children he never knew existed because she had been protecting them, and him. Maria stepped closer, voice shaking. I wanted to tell you. I wanted to come back. But every time I tried, he found us again. And last week, he almost took them. I had to hide them before he came back. Ethan's fists clenched with rage. Not at her. Never her. But at the monster who had stolen 5 years of their lives. He looked at the twins, his twins, and something fierce and unbreakable rose in him. No one, he said, voice low, is taking them again. Not while I'm alive. Maria stared at him, her lips trembling. Ethan, are you sure? He nodded slowly. We stay together. All of us. From now on. And as the snow fell heavier outside, Ethan knew. This wasn't just a reunion. It was a beginning. A dangerous one. A frightening one. But a beginning of a family that fate had torn apart, now fighting to be whole again. What the crowd saw next made every person freeze. She thought her life had already fallen apart, but fate had one final twist waiting. And just when the cafe fell completely silent, the man who changed everything stepped forward with a truth no one expected. Sometimes, the people we meet in our worst moment turn out to be the miracle we were praying for. The timer above the cafe counter blinked 6:47 p.m., but Aisha barely noticed. Her entire world was centered on a single moment, sitting across from a man who didn't see her paralysis as a burden, a flaw, or a reason to walk away. After everything she had endured on what was supposed to be a simple blind date earlier that evening, she was still trying to understand why this stranger, this single dad, had stepped in the way he did. But the truth was, the rest of the cafe was noticing too. Because while Aisha and Hamza sat across from each other talking softly, something unusual was happening around them. People weren't whispering about her wheelchair anymore. They weren't staring with pity or discomfort. They were watching a moment unfold, a moment that felt different, quiet, healing, like witnessing someone regain a piece of their dignity. But what none of them saw coming was what happened when a familiar voice echoed through the entrance. Aisha. Her breath caught.
No.
Not now. Not again. Her blind date, the one who had humiliated her earlier, walked out on her and left her fighting tears, stood there, looking like he'd suddenly remembered she existed. Hamza's eyes sharpened, his protective instincts flipping on instantly. The man swallowed hard and approached, his arrogance from earlier replaced with a shaky, nervous look. Aisha, I think I overreacted. Maybe we can. Hamza stood. Not aggressively. Not dramatically. But with a calmness that somehow felt stronger than anger. Her time is not something you walk away from and come back to whenever you feel like it, he said quietly, but the entire cafe heard him. Her ex-blind date sputtered. Look, I just didn't expect. Hamza lifted a hand. You didn't expect her to be disabled. We know. He took a step toward the man, but his voice remained steady. Let me tell you something. Aisha's strength would crush you. Her resilience is more than you could handle. She deserves someone who sees her, not someone who gets scared and runs. A breathless silence fell. Aisha felt something rise inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Worth.
Value. Dignity.
Her date shifted uncomfortably, glancing around as if suddenly aware of how many eyes were on him. I didn't mean. Just go, Aisha whispered. Her voice wasn't weak. It wasn't pleading. It was firm. He hesitated, then turned and walked out, this time with every person clearly seeing who the real problem had been. Hamza returned to her slowly, not sitting until she nodded. You okay? For the first time that night, she felt a genuine smile tug at her lips. Surprisingly, yes. Just then, a tiny pair of footsteps pattered toward them. Adam, Hamza's son, ran back holding a small paper cup filled with sprinkles. I got these for you, he said proudly. Papa says sprinkles make everything better. She laughed softly, her heart melting at the innocent gesture. Thank you, sweetheart. Hamza leaned back, watching his son and Aisha interact, and something gentle warmed his expression. Aisha felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but with something softer. Something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Still, a question lingered in her mind. Hamza, why did you step in earlier?
You don't know me.
Hamza didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her the way someone looks at a sunrise, gently, thoughtfully. I know what it feels like to feel unwanted, he said finally. People judged me for being a single dad. They judged my son for not having a mother. And then one night, a kind stranger defended us without expecting anything in return. It changed everything for us. Tonight, it felt like it was my turn to do the same. A warmth spread through her chest. Besides, he added with a soft smile, I didn't step in out of pity. I stepped in because I saw a woman who deserved kindness. A woman with strength in her eyes. And, honestly, he glanced at her wheelchair, then at her. I think anyone would be lucky to sit across from you. She blinked rapidly as her eyes filled. No one had said something like that to her since before the accident. Maybe ever. She tried to speak, but the words stuck. Hamza noticed and reached across the table, his hand pausing just inches from hers, giving her the choice. This time she didn't hesitate. Her fingers slid into his, small and trembling, but certain. And in that simple touch, something shifted. Something real. The cafe no longer felt noisy. The world no longer felt cruel. Her disability no longer felt like a cage. Because sometimes, one kind person could rewrite an entire story. And that night, Aisha realized something she'd forgotten. She wasn't broken. She wasn't a burden. She wasn't too much. She had simply been waiting for someone who could see her.
And Hamza?
He already did.